joining us.
Oh my gosh, thanks for having me.
Josie's the coolest. Hey, do you have dates for your symposium?
I sure do. I'm going to share them at some point in the slides.
Okay, cool. I'll take notes and make sure I block it out in my calendar.
Yeah, I think February 7th. It's the first Friday in February.
Okay. All right. Cool. I'm glad to hear that because we couldn't get our act together to do a fall symposium. So we're doing a spring symposium and we do not have the same date as you.
Okay, whew, that's good. Do you think you're going to do a fall? Is that going to be the plan? So you guys will do a fall?
We wanted to do a fall and there was some talk of funding coming from our research office. So they were kind of like taking the lead on a fall one.
Okay.
And so we're like, okay, we'll kind of like play second fiddle on like a more scholarly, like spring kind of situation. And then like they just got busy and slammed and like drifted off into space.
No, that never happens on
That's
campus.
what happened. But I want to take fall so that I never intersect with yours and never compete with yours. I want to only complement yours.
Well, if we can help in any way, please let us know because we are more than happy to support.
Well, and likewise, we're going to be the 9th. So we'll shout out your recently completed symposium at ours.
We'll definitely give a shout out to you guys and be like, oh, hey, in case anybody wants to back this stuff.
Oh my goodness. Well, then, okay. And then how's your semester shaping up? You hanging in there? Okay.
Yes, it's hard coming back from sabbatical. I didn't really.
You were on sabbatical when I was on sabbatical.
We were both on sabbatical, and it seems, well, maybe you did a better job at being on sabbatical. I learned that I am a terrible sabbatical person. And it only really let me say no to things that I truly didn't want to do and just gave me more time to do more of the work that I was already doing that maybe wasn't what I wanted to do, but also didn't want to step away completely from. So I'm back and things are just really tip top around here.
I totally understand that. So you took one semester, right?
Yeah.
I didn't even feel like I slowed down until the end of the first semester.
So you did a whole year?
I did a whole year.
Yeah, I think the problem was we had the symposium in February, right? So if I would have just been able to disappear in January, I think things would have been a little bit better. But then people were like, oh, well, Josie's answering email. So it's fine. And then I just kept answering email. And then that just kept making worse things happen, not worse things, but just work kept happening. And then I feel like I didn't get away. I went to Italy and visited my best friend who's teaching over there in.
Hey.
That was super fun. End of April, beginning of May. But that was like really the only time where I was like, I didn't bring my laptop. And then of course 5 like major fires broke out because that was like right at the time when like the first round of funding was maybe getting cut from OSUP and different things. And so I like had to like all of a sudden scramble and get an iPad and just be like, here's our narrative on stuff and please don't cut our funding. So
wow.
So I tried to step away and then that just failed. And I was like, okay, I'm just not meant to step away. Got it.
It's like it's like when here's how I would explain it to people because they'd be like, why are you working? And I was like, everything that's happening right now is stuff I started working on 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And so it's been my baby for 5 years. And I'm not really in control of when something moves on a 5-year project, but when it moves, I have to move with it.
Yeah, exactly.
So some of those things are moving now.
Yeah, and I would love for it to not be moving right now, but this is when we're moving. And it's also when like a bunch of stuff on our campus like really took off with neurodiversity stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, I can't not be in this meeting that I've been trying to make happen for the last like 4 years on stuff. So I'm like, okay, well, yep, I'm coming to campus. And I'd be like, I am not here. People would say, and be like, oh, I don't exist. Please keep walking.
Oh my God. See, we should have texting each other like while you were
and then we probably would have made more work for us. Let's be like, hey, have you thought this? I'm like, what about this thing?
Like I was going to SSD and I'm like, you never saw me. I wasn't here. If anyone knows I'm here, they're just going to give you more work. I was never here.
Oh yeah, I would like sneak into my office at like 7 in the morning and like beat everybody in. And then like on my way out, be like, just straight down the hallway, like 900 minutes. People would see and say hi. They'd be like, oh, hi, I'm not talking to anybody. I'm not here. And they're like, understood. Yes, got it.
love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a key to my building and I would just come in on Sunday.
Yeah, I didn't do that because I'm like,
Anything.
I can't on a weekend, like Josie, get your life together. But I definitely was here more than I wanted to be, but also it's fine. My just stuff makes me happy, so it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, and the stuff you're doing is so awesome. And I'm happy to hear that, some of those 5-year pieces were like moving and shaking for you. Because I mean, yeah, like I feel like your ecosystem just continues to grow. Like even when you shared that video with me, I wrote a line item in our next grant to do a video like that. It was like flipping fantastic.
It makes me cry every time I watch it. We showed at symposium, and every time I get all verklempt about it. And I'm just like, you guys, this is so good.
So good.
The
It's
students
so
did such a good job. Like, it was very limited scripting. Like, they really carried that whole.
got it. They just knew.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Well, do you want to test your
Yeah, I
slide?
do want to test my slides. Yeah. Because I want to just triple make sure that my notes aren't going to show up on stuff because it would just be silly if it did.
Right now they are showing.
The notes are showing?
Yes, so I have the presenter view where you've got your slide and then you've got your next slide and your notes that start with thank you for having me.
Hmm. What do we think if I do this?
Uh, Still presenter.
Okay.
What I would say is open 2 windows of your slides and do one in presenter view for you and then do one in like present, just regular present mode. And I think that they'll page forward together and then just share the one that's in regular old present mode. I think, but Ben might know this better than me.
Ben, can you help us? I also just try to be an adult and not use stuff. I think my file is so big I can't move it. That's my other problem.
Don't write it down, it doesn't go in my brain. Yeah, Josie, you look good.
Okay. Whew.
Yeah, it's in the regular presentation mode, not the one with the note.
Okay, great.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So, Ben, you think we're good to start bringing folks in?
Yes.
All right, sweet. Hello and welcome to folks joining us. Welcome to everyone coming in the room. So happy to have you here. Hi to Myra, who just said hello in chat. I know I'm a little bit quiet unless I stand closer to the mic. So for my introduction, I'm going to stand really close to the mic that's really tall. So that way folks can hear me. But if for any reason you can't hear me or you need anything technology wise, please just holler. I am also monitoring the chat so we can take care of anything along those lines. I'm Dr. Jess Block-Narin. I am the Faculty Fellow for Disability Inclusion for Cal State San Bernardino. And I am going to introduce our very special guest speaker today. So before I get started with introductions, just a couple of housekeeping and thank you items. There is the world's most amazing group of people that make this speaker series possible. So first, thanks to Pam Crossan, and to Finn Lee, and to the Disability Studies Work Group, Drs. Jeremy Murray, Jessica Luck, Tiffany Jones, Jonathan Hall, and J. Chad Sweeney. The Intellectual Life Fund, who funded our speaker stipends for this year, Academic Affairs, Student Affairs, Services to Students with Disability, our disability inclusion liaisons, including Dr. Sanjeev Mann, who is in the room with me here today, and all those who support and make it possible. Thank you also to all of our guests. We have 49 folks on our Zoom right now, just up to 50. So we have guests from all over campus, the state, the country, and the world joining us today, which is pretty cool. And the most important thank you to Dr. Josie Blagrave for being here with us today and for sharing her wisdom and her knowledge with us. A little bit about her. So I know Dr. Blagrave for my first time as Disability Inclusion Faculty Fellow. A member of the autism community, Julia Corona Rogoff, who's a powerhouse family advocate in the Inland Empire and Southern Riverside autism communities, had just moved up to Chico at the time. And she knew I was going up to the campus and told me, I went back and I pulled it in my notes. She said, I think the two of you would make a great connection. And boy, was she right. She was not kidding. I was lucky enough to stumble across Dr. Blagrave working tirelessly in her office, and I was dazzled immediately by her passion, energy, and presence. I think that the world needs more disability inclusion faculty fellows at all universities. And I think and will unapologetically hope to speak it into existence that she will be among the next in our system. Later in 2024, I came back again and attended her packed neurodiversity symposium. It was an unbelievably electric event and one that inspired our forthcoming Neurodiversity and Disability Studies mini symposium coming up on February 9th. It did also, one of the speakers informed the Dating, Relationships, and Boundaries class that I'm currently teaching alongside the Miracle Project. These are folks on the bleeding edge of neurodiversity, disability inclusion, and truly rooted deeply and meaningfully in community. Her work on all fronts makes her an incredible pioneer in the spaces of disability inclusion and neurodiversity. And most importantly, her work is deeply connected by, with, and for the communities she serves. That connectedness makes her light years ahead and makes it so that she is absolutely adored by people that I know and trust in the community. A little bit more about her work. In her work, Dr. Blagrave's research interests include improving health outcomes for autistic populations and their families, fulfilling the needs of disabled students within the CSU system, and improving research methodologies around populations who have limited expressive language abilities. She is a neuro-affirming scholar and practitioner, founder of the Chico State Neurodiversity Symposium, and board member of the Yellow Door, an autism nonprofit. She focuses on creating meaningful opportunities for neurodivergent and or disabled folks, including physical activity programs and educational initiatives. With that, welcome and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for that interjection, Jess. I got tired hearing it and I'm like, oh, this is why I'm stressed out all the time. But I am so grateful to be here. I am somebody who really wishes we were in person together. And as questions come up, feel free to like have a dialogue throughout this whole entire conversation today, because I really see it as a conversation. And I also want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to just kind of go through and have this time to reflect on what we've done on our campus and like what my career trajectory has been, because it was a really positive experience to go through all of that. So thank you. And thank you all for being here. Um, so I know that when we do professional presentations, we have to always start out with this. Here's why you should listen to me. And so I tried to pick some things that I think pertained here, but a lot of the points I'm going to share throughout our journey together for the next hour. But one of the things I don't cover, and Jess talked about it a little bit, is my work with students. And so over the last 7, 8 years, I have worked with roughly 45 graduate students on their culminating projects. And what's been an interesting thing for me is on our campus, even though I'm in kinesiology, so I study movement, um, because I'm the only autism person in our faculty campus wide, a lot of students come find me and are like, hey, I heard you do autism. And I'm like, I do autism. What do you mean? And they're always like, well, so I have this idea and I want to study this thing, but I'm in the psychology department, or I have this idea and I want to do this thing, but I'm in child development. And I'm always like, okay, yes, like I unfortunately have never met a research project or a student idea that they're not excited about that I didn't like. And so that has led to some really great things. So recently I had a grad student who is Hmong, and she wanted to study the experiences of Hmong families around disability in Northern California. And that was like one of the most privileged spaces I feel like I've ever got to be in research. If you aren't familiar, like that culture does not really, disability is a bad word, very much so. And there's, if the spirit catches you and you fall down, there's that book that talks a lot about that. And it's a lot of shamanistic beliefs. And so it was really interesting to hear from families who are younger and coming up through the ranks now and like hearing their societal pressures and how that goes. So that was a really great study. Um, and my research life is never dull because right now I am learning something new. There's this whole framework around neuroqueerness with Nick Walker. And so that's kind of like this new space that I have a few students that are like kind of catapulting me into. And so I, of all these things that I think are important that I've done and that you're going to hear about, I think one of my most treasured things is working with graduate students and just getting to support their research on our campus. I am always, when I hear people talk, I am always curious about folks' backstories. And so I think an important thing for you all to know, aside from like these really like high accolade things that I shared on the last slide and what Jess shared earlier, is there's all this other stuff about me that you all are would never know in 1,000 years. So some fun things like I went to school in a one-room schoolhouse. I grew up on a ranch in like very, very rural Northern California. Something that I think informed me at a young age is my mom did home care for a autistic adult with high support needs. And so I was around Matt all growing up. Like he was just part of our family. And I realized as I talk to people, like that is not like a normal thing that most folks would be exposed to, especially 30 years ago. I am a first gen college student and I couldn't afford applications for college. My parents had absolutely no idea what to do. And my volleyball coach and my English teacher paid for 5 of my college applications. Um, but college was like a weird fit for me. Like I was smart, but I didn't fit in spaces. And so I bounced around quite a bit. I went to Willamette University, which is in Salem, Oregon, my first year. It's probably the worst place I could have landed because imagine this girl that I just told you about, and now she's at like an Ivy League West Coast school. So didn't like that. Went back to community college in Reading, almost failed out, and then was like, well, I guess I'll go to Chico because that's where everybody goes. And someone I was talking to was like, hey, you played sports in high school, right? And I was like, oh yeah, I totally played sports in high school. And like, oh, you should go talk to Rebecca Lytle. She's in the kinesiology department. Now, mind you, I thought that I was going to be a journalism major and I was going to work for National Geographic. I had all these other plans. I did not think I was going to be doing any of that. But needless to say, that's how I landed in adapted physical education, which is like my home base for everything and where my department is, and where most of my research originally was situated in. Um, I'm a really anxious person. I try to play it off with jokes and overly talking sometimes. I'm also a mom to adopted autistic now 17-year-olds, and I always think it's interesting for me in different roles, especially with students, because as a professor, I can talk to them about like, well, here's what the books say, and then also here's like the actual day-to-day parts on this. And I think it's a fun thing that I get to bridge for people, and also this reverse for families, right? When families come to me and they're like, oh, well, this and that. And I'm like, okay, yeah, but yes, and here's also what the research says, or here's like the political pieces of that that maybe you don't understand yet. So I have this weird space that I live in. I'm also a mediocre gravel biker and okay hiker, and I also love being outside at all times. I figured we might as well just figure out my presentation style really quick. So hopefully I didn't offend anybody with this title on this slide. But as I was thinking through all of this, I was trying to figure out the things that most shaped where I'm at. Here you will see baby Josie. She is at best 20 years old. My first job in Chico was job coaching. So I was doing supported employment for adults with developmental disabilities. And my boss was like, well, we want to start this janitorial crew and we think you'd be a great fit. And I was like, I'm gonna work a janitorial crew with adults with disabilities. Oh, sure, it's at night. I'm going to school. Like it's a full-time job with benefits. Sounds great. I'm in. And then I was about a year in and I learned about time studies. I don't know if everybody here is familiar with time studies, but they, I think, have gone away since. But if you were an adult that was in supported employment, you had to do a test basically for whatever your job was. So, for example, I'm with the janitorial crew. So, once a year, they would have to do a mop run down a specific hallway. They'd have to clean a specific window and they would have to sweep a certain space. And whatever amount of time it took them, there was a percentage of stuff that was based on what a typical person would do, and that would be the percentage of money that they would get on their paycheck. So a sub minimum wage amount. I heard about this and I was like, are you joking me? Like this cannot be a real thing. I go to come back to Chico State and talk to my professor, and she's like, oh yeah, that's a real thing. I was like, what is this nonsense? So then I did what any kinesiology student would do. since we're sports people and we like to win, I said, fine, we're going to practice every night and you guys are going to get the best time studies we've ever gotten. So every night we practice the same runs. We spend a little bit more time at work every night. And my crew ended up getting at 95% when before they had been at like, let's say 40. So like 40 cents on the dollar. If you think that's a good thing, you will be sad to learn that it was not. I got called into the executive director's office and was in major trouble because I had rigged the time studies. And I was getting scolded, and I'm this little baby. Like, I know nothing about anything, but I'm just like, this makes absolutely no sense to me. I'm in trouble now because people are making the amount of money that they should just because they're adults with disabilities. This makes no sense. And so I did what I do when I am usually confronted by people in power who make me mad. I laughed at Carl's face. And that did not go well. I was written up. And the next year I came back and did the same thing. And I knew that I was leaving the program. I was leaving the job. I had to start grad school. Not had to. I had a great opportunity to have to go to grad school here. And I knew that I was going to be done. And I knew that if I got the time studies done, then the guys would have at least one more year of the same rates because they couldn't undo what I had done. And so I was just like, it's my last couple nights. And I'm like, guys, I'm so sorry. I'm so sad. And Roy over here, that's in the Canada jacket, was just like, he's like, Josie, this is just how people like us get treated. And it's just not fair, but it's okay. And we really appreciate that, like, you tried. And I was like, well, shoot, Roy, like, this is terrible. And I am going to figure out how to like make things different moving forward in the world. And he's like, well, you might, but people have also tried before you. And I was like, well, this is heartbreaking. 20-year-old Josie's like, well, okay. So while the social model of disability was what I was like learning in class, there really wasn't like a ton of this disability justice piece, but I can think back to this moment in time and just be like, oh no, this is not right. And I'm not playing this game. So then we get to our autism clinic and the yellow door. And this picture in the middle is kind of a snapshot of like what I was thinking about when I did this slide. So, what's the worst that could happen? Well, we had a few autistic teenagers in our motor space, and they were kind of bored with stuff. We'd learned soccer, we'd learned all this thing so that they could go be with their peers in a school-based setting, which is kind of like the gist of most things that we're doing. And this kid was like, well, I want to rock climb. And I was like, okay, we got a rock wall, let's go do it. And people were like, oh, you can't take these kids over the rock wall. You can't take autistic kids to climb. What if somebody gets hurt? And I was like, oh, yeah. What if somebody gets hurt? Yeah, okay, we won't do that. We're totally going to go do that. So we did. And what the worst thing could happen turned into the best thing that could happen because this kid went on to be in the military, used his rappelling and rock climbing skills in a bunch of the missions that he was on, and is still an avid rock climber to this day. So I think about what's the worst thing that could happen. And then I often always turn it around and like, okay, well, like, what's the best thing that could happen? So along those two lines, we have our autism clinic, and we had just moved into our brand new building at the time, 25 years ago, YOLO Hall. And each discipline, each subdiscipline was given a space to make theirs. And we had they're called a gym and swim program in our field, but basically kids with disabilities will come to a space and there's an hour of gym programming and there's an hour of pool programming. And so at that time we had about 50 kids in that program. It was supported by students in our service learning and intro classes. And that was right, that would have been 2004. And so that was, if you think back, that's kind of right about the time where you started to really see an uptick in autistic students in just all kinds of educational spaces. And we had about 7 kids all of a sudden that had a lot of sensory needs, and the gym space just wasn't it for them. Like, they wanted to move, they were movers, but it was too loud in the gym. There was balls and activity and yelling and all kinds of stuff happening. And the pool area was pretty chaotic. So my mentor, Rebecca Lytle, at the time was like, well, let's just bring those kids into clinic and see what happens, into the space and see what happens. And I was like, okay. And I'm a grad student at the time, and I'm just like, well, what are we doing? We're going to bring everybody here, and we're tying it to a class. Okay, I got it. So we brought these kids in, and every week for 2 hours, we would have an hour of class, and then we would have 2 hours of programming, and we would just start kind of troubleshooting stuff. And the kids in that space, like, launched off with their motor skills. Like, they went from like not engaged, not anything, to like, oh, okay, like in playing balls and not really engaging with each other as much, but they could engage with the students that were in the class and like their parents a lot more. And so it still wasn't the best space. So then we went to the regional, our Far Northern Regional Center, and said, hey, we think we could do this program. What if you pay us to do this? And so that is how our autism clinic started, was really in this space of like, well, I mean, what are we going to do? Okay. And so I was a grad student at the time. I graduated a year after that, and then turned around and just was full-time employed there, and then have since just outlasted everybody and am the director of that space. And I currently have 3 full-time clinicians and about 25 student interns every single semester. And we serve 65-ish families from the community that come in 1 time a week to work on their gross motor and object control skills, or work in games and activities that they would be able to do to be lifelong movers. Parallel timeline, I am this newly minted clinic coordinator. And I have all these families that are coming into my space and are like, Josie, we're just dying for research. We want to know like what's out there. So it's, let's say 2007, it's 2007 or 2008. And they're just like, you get to go to this conference. I was going to the International Meeting for Autism Research every year. And I would just like start taking notes. And so whatever families were needing, those were the sessions that I would try to squeeze in. So I'm just like taking all these notes, taking all these notes, um, and doing all these different things. And then the families were like, also, it would be really great if we could have like an autism walk here, because there, isn't, like, we're driving down to SAC to do the Autism Speaks walk. And I'm like, yeah, that's terrible. That seems like the worst thing ever. Yeah, I don't know what we're going to do. So about that time, then I have the students from Greek life on campus come and they're like, hey, you do autism. I'm like, oh gosh, this is apparently the line that gets used. Yes, I work with autistic children. Yeah, what's up? They were like, we want to do an autism walk. All the Greeks want to do it, and we'll do the money and we'll send it to Autism Speaks, but we could do the walk here. And I was like, okay, I love the idea of a walk here. What if we keep the money here? And they're like, well, how are we going to do that? And I'm like, I haven't figured that out yet, but are you guys in if I can figure this out? And they said, yeah. So I had a friend who is the director of the North Valley Community Foundation here. I was like, hey, what do you think about this idea? And she's like, oh yeah, just start a nonprofit and we can do a walk and you can just keep the money here. I was like, okay, I guess I'm starting a nonprofit. So 2008 was our first autism walk. And I, in my head, was like, if 100 kids show up, it's going to be great. I think about 400 families showed up that first year. And it really became a space that folks were able to come and feel safe, to come and feel like they weren't being judged, and to like really celebrate just their families, whatever it looked like. Um, Nobody was getting weird looks because their kid was eloping or flapping or toe walking. Like, it was just a space that like everybody just felt like they could breathe for a second. Um, and so the money from that walk every single year has gone to different organizations. So there isn't, we don't have really a board per se. I have like 5 parents that'll be like, hey, can I send this money? Because someone has to like tell me I can do something. It can't just be me making decisions. So we've 1 year we're able to fund all of the mod severe classes in the county with $500 grants so they could buy extra things. We have helped build out a wing of the Chico Children's Museum so that it was sensory friendly so that our families could also go participate there. But the biggest thing that I think this has helped with is 2 things. We have a family grant. So if at any time families can't make a PG&E bill, or there's a piece of equipment that they can't afford for their child, they can just write in and ask for funds, and we will try our best to be able to provide them with that. The other thing that this nonprofit allowed us to do was when we had the campfire up here. I knew so many families that were in Paradise through the clinic, but also through all of our networks. And within 24 hours, we had Venmoed most, I think we had Venmoed 30 different families and like paid for hotels or food or gift cards or any of that, like right post emergency fire stuff. And that's continued to happen as we've had other natural disasters up here. So I think those have been like the 2 really great things that have come out of that space. And, if we would have stayed stuck in that, what's the worst thing that could happen and like not move forward? I think that these 2 spaces wouldn't have existed and came to be. And so I'm that's how those two things happened. The yellow door is kind of on a bit of a pause right now as far as the walk, just because I'm a little bit overtaxed. I just handed the walk off to another organization in town that really is good at event planning and works closely with the disabled community and uh, could use some funding right now in our current budget crisis. So I just passed that off, and it was a little bittersweet. It was a hard thing to do, but I think it was the right thing to do. And the community still had their big event last year, and everybody was still happy and doing stuff. So then remember how folks were asking me about collecting stuff at the conference I would go to? Well, finally I was like, well, what if we just did a conference here? Because you're starting to learn maybe that I'm like, well, what if we just did this thing? So I went and met with conference people on our campus, and they were like, well, you want to do, so let me get this straight. You want to have professionals come talk about autism. And I was like, no, I want to have autistic people come talk about being autistic. And they were like, autistic people don't talk. And I was like, and you're wrong. We'll start there. And and they're like, okay, so we'll have one autistic speaker. I was like, no, autistic speakers are going to be the keynote, and then we're going to bring as many other autistic folks as we can. And they're like, okay, I don't see the vision. And I was like, what if I can get John Robinson? And they're like, oh, who's that guy? And I was like, he's like the main autism guy besides Temple Grandin right now. Like, well, do you know him? And I was like, I do not know him. Not at all. I do not. But so I cold emailed John and was like, I probably was like, hi, John. I'm wondering if you would like to, and who knows why, but John very much was like, this is a fantastic idea. I'm in. Let's do it. And so the first year we had the symposium, John Robinson was our keynote, and he was incredible. He was all the things that I was thinking about with social justice. He set it up in a way that was so accessible to families. And that was the most important thing for me as I was thinking through this. I just wanted our families to see somebody who was like their kids, or for autistic people on our campus and community to see someone that was like them and just be like, oh my gosh, we're visible. Someone is here, because they weren't getting that in any spaces. And families were like, holy cow, he like brought the house down. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And so from that point, I've just been leveraging autistic connections since then. Like, I feel like I'm honorary their team at this point. But so I was like, okay, John, so I got to do this again next year, apparently. Like, who should I get? And so he'll kind of like piece together a list, and he gives me these names. And I was like, okay, Dina Gasser, let's do it. And so then that's just kind of how it's gone every year. So we've just been like, okay, so who am I not hearing about, and who is up and coming, and who should I be going to? So we did this for a few years, and I'm just like, oh, we're crushing it. We expand it out to being disability. So now it's the Neurodiversity and Disability Symposium. We bring in Alicia Anderson, who went to school here at Chico State with me and is also a big advocate now. She's a wheelchair user, and she was awesome. I was like, we finally made it. Clearly, I'm going to get an endowed position on campus. We were just going to be the disability university, and everything is going to work out. Endgame, it's 2019. Life is great. Well, that was not exactly the case. I tried so hard to come up with bullet points for this slide, and I just couldn't do it, because the blankness, I think, is actually the feeling I was having. And it was a representation of what was happening, right? So we all know about COVID, but before that, things had already started stalling on our campus. Like, it was, folks were getting tired. I had kind of like exhausted like my first level connections on campus, and had kind of gotten to a point where I was like, I don't know what to do. We make it through COVID. 2022, we did the symposium online. Well, during COVID, we did the symposium online. 2022, we're back. And our university president at the time came to give the welcome address. And I'm gonna say that it was lackluster. I'm sure she had plenty of other things going on, but we had given very specific talking points. And if there was a way to fumble it, language wise, perception wise, all the things, it could not have been fumbled worse. And our community up here is a pretty forgiving community, but they're going to call you out if they think that like you're kind of on the BS wagon. And so a mom raised her hand and was like, but what are you actually doing on this campus? And I don't know if you all know much about university presidents, but there are a lot of things they don't like. And one of them is being made to feel like they don't care. And the other thing is, making it seem like they're not trying to do something. And so I called up my friend Bettina here on campus, who was one of my grad students and was working, and we've been kind of doing parallel work together. And I was like, dude, we're making a move. And she's like, we're making a move. And I was like, we're finally making a move. And so we emailed the president and we're like, hey, Prez, clearly it's more formal than this, but here's the gist. We heard your comments at the symposium. Thank you so much for being there. You know, you gotta do the gracious thing. Like, we think that maybe campus needs a task force. Presidents love task force. Like, they're the favorite things. Hopefully there's not a president on here. If there is, you could probably vouch for me because I think you guys do. And she's like, okay, you guys can have a task force to better understand neurodiversity on our campus. I don't think you need to worry about disability because that's, you know, ARC does that stuff. And I'm all, yeah, no, ARC's gonna be part of the team. It's gonna be great. We're gonna do all of it. And I promise you, she thought nothing was going to come of this, but if you say, oh, the president said we could do this thing, people don't tend to like push back a ton. So we ended up finally hitting our tipping point on stuff. We were able to leverage a lot of connections. I had been what I call collecting people over the years. And so I made it past those, you know, first level interactions, if we're thinking about like a social circle, and had finally pushed out into a big enough group on campus. And then the funding came in a little bit for a few different ways. So Bettina has a website that's the Neurodiversity Network. And so she does a lot of stuff with workforce and employment. And she works in our employment office on campus. The student, not the student group, the counseling center began having a neurodiversity student support group. We got some funding as part of a 3-campus project through the National Science Foundation to improve STEM success rates for students in those programs. Our student group started their neurodiversity club. That's now the Neurodiversity and Disability Club, but this was where they were at then. And those kids are brilliant. I'm obsessed with them. I got picked to be part of the UC CSU collaborative. So that's a statewide initiative that looks at partnerships between policymakers and then the UCs with research and the CSUs with the teacher training piece and how we could connect. And then our good friend John Marble published Neurodiversity for Dummies and gave Chico State a shout out. And I thought that that was like, I thought life couldn't really get better than that because John is just somebody that I admire so much. And for him to think we were doing a good job and to say that he would rather invest his time on us and our campus than the other bigger universities that he was being asked to do work for, I was just blown away by that piece. And he continues to kind of just be our compass with a lot of things on this campus. Like if we get kind of stuck on something or I'm in a like kind of a brain pickle and things, will be like, hey, John, can we like just talk something out? And so he comes every year and is a big supporter of the symposium and has been a presenter multiple times for us. I could see the vision, but I didn't know we were going to get here. So we now have a Neurodiversity and Disability Faculty and Staff Association. I quickly went through our list today to just write down as many as I could fit on a screen of where folks are embedded on our campus right now. And I think that I think it's just brilliant. And I love that we have been able to, that folks are comfortable enough to identify on our campus that they are willing to be in the space to say that they are neurodiverse or disabled or whatever their gig is, or they're an ally, and come to the table and work on things to make our campus better. So the structure looks like this. We have an executive committee, which is there's 3 of us that were kind of the original board members, for lack of a better word, on that task force. And then this semester we started working groups. And so these working groups came out of what everybody was said in our meeting in the spring of what they wanted to accomplish in the fall and moving forward. So we have an ally self-advocacy training. That is, it was originally, when they did it the first time, it was to help educate educators on how to be better for students. But now the self-advocacy piece is really turning into how can faculty and staff advocate for themselves as well. So that's been a really great thing that started to come out. We have a campus events committee. So twice a year, we're trying to do something that is disability centered on our campus. We had our first graduation celebration in the spring, and we had 47 disabled and neurodivergent students show up with their families and have just a big old party. And it was like, it brought me so much joy. I can't even begin to tell you all. Membership, whatever. Parent support group, it's always interesting to me in those spaces, but there is a big need on our campus for parents to have support. And so we've got a group doing that. And then we have a social group that is doing meetups with faculty and staff once a month. All of these groups are working through Teams offline and then connecting back with the executive committee members just for guidance if they need help with anything. But we already have, I think, 6 different things booked in the fall based on these working groups. And so I just am so proud of everybody, and I just think that everybody is doing such an amazing job. Um, Thinking about that whole ecosystems idea as we're moving through, nobody is building an ecosystem in a vacuum, right? Like when we think about it, like we're all these interconnected spider webs on stuff. And I think that spider webbing piece is what has really like made our campus strong. Um, and a lot of it has really stemmed from the student group. So one of the things that they did a ton of last year was every time another one of the student groups were doing something, they were like, hey, what if we do this together? Because there's so much of a Venn diagram with our neurodivergent and disabled students on our campuses in these other spaces. And folks just maybe don't know or aren't aware of it, but the students get it. And the students are like, oh yeah, how can we make this inclusive? Let's do it. Let's market this together. And so from all of that, the biggest connection has been with the queer student group. And so we had the first ever this past fall, it is fall, uh, in September, the beginning of September, we had it was the neurodiversity and disability and queer welcome reception. And it was the first time any of the student faculty groups have mashed up together across genres, for lack of a better word. Um, and it was so warm, so welcoming. We probably had 200 people there from all parties. The president of the university came and gave a great welcome speech. Lots of leadership on campus were there. It was a really, really great time. Um, the other thing that the student group has done is they have partnered with the Well. And on our campus, that's like it's like I don't know, I think it's like a spa. I walked down there for the first time 3 months ago because faculty aren't allowed in that space like to use it, and was like, hold on, what is this magical space? So there's like a quiet room and a massage chair and these big sleeping pods, and it's like a sensory dream come true down there. Um, and so the students just cold emailed and were like, hey, so we're wondering if we could use this space because it's really sensory friendly. And lo and behold, some of the staff members there are also autistic neurodivergent. And they're like, oh, this is brilliant. We've been trying to figure out how to connect with you all, but we couldn't be the people to reach out. So now every Friday from 12 to 2, that is where our neurodiversity and disability student group meets. And it has like, it's just been the best thing ever. Um, we have a lot of folks coming to us now from the different colleges with advising and trying to understand how to better support students through the academic process. Advising is kind of like one of those linchpin spaces. And so getting students who struggle with communication or struggle to just have the executive function to get in those spaces, they're starting to realize that. And so we have a group of folks who are working on connecting with that. Right now, our pilot is with the College of ECC. So the engineering, computer science, and construction management, very STEM, very, very autism, very all the things over there. So that's been a great space. Um, and then the other web piece that I think is interesting is we have a think tank. So I don't know why that's the name that we came up with, but 2 symposiums ago, we had a lot of professionals that were there and were like, the symposium is great, we love it. And can you do something so that we could all just meet up and figure out how to like engage with each other more? I'm like, yeah, sure, we can totally try to figure that out. That sounds great. So this in next week, I think, next Friday, we are going to have our second think tank, and we have about 40 people registered. And it is folks from every professional realm when it comes to neurodiversity and disability. So it is everyone from housing to counseling to higher ed to people in our rec on campus to service providers in the community. And I just think that has been a really great space to try. And the intention is that folks are figuring out what resources each other have, how they can support each other, and where we can band together to like not duplicate services, which I think, especially in the far north up here in rural areas, that is like a key to the whole entire thing. So we've been doing a lot of work with these partnerships and making sure that folks are all working together on things as much as possible. I have a little movie I'm going to share with you all. And this is from our students on our campus talked about their sense of belonging basically on and being at Chico State.
Being a neurodivergent person means having a different way of viewing the world. Colors are brighter for me, sounds are louder, but I can also struggle with things like anxiety and depression. I can struggle with socializing.
Time kind of goes by really fast, and I don't notice it because I'm so zoned in on a project. I focus so much on one class and then I don't have time for the other class, and I'm just kind of zooming through the work and I'm not learning.
I tend to think differently. And because of that, there are some strengths to that. I don't always look at it as a disability. When I'm manic or I'm having those ups, I'm able to take care of a lot of the things I got to do a lot of the work I got to do, the projects I got to work on. And because I know that those crashes are coming, there are, once again, resources here, such as the Well Center and places like that, which really help a person to unwind. Everything you can think of to just relax. And that helps tremendously.
Chico State has meant a lot to me. Both my parents went here, and it's also the place where I discovered that I was autistic because of the neurodiversity task force on campus. I think Chico State has really opened my eyes to the diverse range of people on this planet, and the diverse range of thinking and feeling.
With every professor, with every student I met, I kind of felt more like Chico State is a home for me. And even when I had to take a break, I felt comfortable coming back because I knew that people were going to be here for me and they were going to help me get back on my feet.
Chico State means to me everything. Hope for my future, hope that I didn't have before. As an older student, I didn't know kind of what I was going to do, what my plans or what the options even were for me. But there's been so many people that have come and educated me, and it's really kind of opened me up to the possibility of a brighter future.
Think differently? At Chico State, so do we. We're on the forefront of neurodiversity and disability visibility, and we need your unique perspective to continue leading the way. Dare to join us and help build a better world. Learn more at csuchico.edu/diversity.
And now I'm going to be the first to say that is clearly a hype video. Like, there are things on campus that could be better. Every space has things that could be better. And I just love that these students, that was not scripted. Like, they just went through and shared their piece. And then there was not like the editing, the whole thing just came together. I get choked up every time I watch it because I just think they did such a great job. Okay, as we're wrapping up, so our next moves at Chico State. This one, folks do know about it, is our next Neurodiversity and Disability Symposium. That date is not right at all. Nobody knows why I put that there. I will clarify that. That is completely not the right date. But we have Caitlin from Love on the Spectrum is going to be our keynote, and Joey Travolta, who does a lot of film. I didn't know much about this until I went searching to figure out what he does. But he has basically a job training pipeline for students who are autistic who want to be in the film industry. So you go to his camp and then you basically get pipelined into the film industry. Breakout sessions this year, here are some of them. I am here to report that I have never been more excited on the entire face of the planet. Don't ever tell this to any of the other keynotes because I've had Temple Grandin as a keynote. But I am so excited to have Hari as a breakout session. I don't know if anybody is familiar with Hari, but he is the non-speaking he was at Berkeley and now he is back, maybe Purdue, I don't remember. But he is a brilliant researcher and I have been wanting to have him as our keynote for so long. And he couldn't do the keynote because he couldn't travel around his school schedule this spring. But I am over the moon. And once again, this was one of these things where folks were like, Josie, you want to have a non-speaking keynote? And I was like, yeah, it's going to be great. And they're like, okay. So stay tuned. Hopefully that goes as well as I hope it does. But there will be a remote option available. I still am so confused where those dates came from because those are not, maybe it is February 6th. I'm gonna move on. Okay. And the other thing that we are launching in the spring is we are going to have certificate in neurodiversity for educators and professionals. So it is a 3, 4, 5, 6, a 6 course sequence. And the intention behind it is that it is more strengths-based and neuroaffirming than a lot of the other certificate programs that I have looked at and seen for educators. Um, with the intention of leveraging evidence-based practices in that space. So how can we get folks that are out in the field already more up to speed and give them the tools so that they can support neurodivergent students in their spaces? So here's the list of our classes that we're going to have. And if you want more information, I'm going to have my email at the end and people can feel free to reach out there. But it's something, this was my sabbatical project in this past spring, and I'm really excited about it. I think I'm hopeful that it's going to go really well. My final thoughts on things. I was trying to think of like the things we did on our campus don't necessarily translate to other people's spaces. So I was trying to figure out things to share that are not like cookie cutter things that you could just be like, oh, here's exactly what you need to do, because everyone's systems are different, everyone's spaces are different. So when I stripped it all away, I really came down to these thoughts. And this first one is like my biggest one. You basically can't be picky about who is coming to the table. Like everyone belongs at the space that whatever it is you're trying to build. If somebody wants to be there, you need to figure out how to make space and let them be there, because you just never know like how that's going to play out. Big on the leveraging what already exists and embedding into current infrastructures. One of the things that I did not share, that I should have back on a different slide, was that we now have data on our incoming students. So when they come to Choose Chico weekend or when they do their orientation on campus, the orientation survey that they all do now has 2 questions that are centered on disability, because we had no way to grab that student data anywhere on our campus. And the question, is, do you identify as disabled or neurodivergent? Yes, no. Do you want to be contacted with things that are happening on campus? So now for the last 3 years, we have compiled a list of at least 120 students every semester that I basically send a welcome email to when they first get here and say, here's the student groups, here's the places you could get plugged into if you don't know where they are. And that all came about like because we didn't build a new thing. We didn't need to market a new thing. We just needed to get a couple questions on something that already exists. Meeting folks where they're at and with kindness. I have had, as we all have, I'm sure, had the most asinine conversations with people around disability and folks not understanding. And I think you just have to meet folks where they are and do your best to be kind about things, because everybody at the end of the day, I really do think is trying their best. And especially now we have such a resource scarcity, but we can still help each other. I think one of the things that I'm proud about all of us on our campus is we could all just be hoarding in our own little spaces and saying, this is mine, this is my pot, you can't have any of it. And instead it feels like in this space, everybody's reaching across the table and being like, okay, I have this thing, I need this from you, here's what you can do, how can we piece this all together so that our students can get the best experience possible. So these are my thoughts on how we can all keep moving forward on stuff. But here's my biggest takeaway at the end of all of this, especially in our current times, is I like wake up and I read the news and I'm so disheartened every day. And I think it would be easy for us to all give up and to throw in the towel, but we just have to keep doing this work and coming together and figuring things out in these spaces and listening to each other and leveraging things and doing our best, because at the end of the day, we kind of only have each other in this space. And then thanks for listening. Hopefully it was helpful. I don't know how this works now, Jess. Do we get to have questions or is that game over?
We love questions.
Okay. Do I get out of slides? I'm gonna get out of slides.
It's up to you. So however you want to do it, it works for us. So I've been monitoring the Q&A, and it was just mostly kind of like a little bit of, is this going to be recorded? Is there going to be a recording? That kind of stuff. So housekeeping type stuff.
Gotcha.
And then one person asked for the updated date. So I did pull that on your website. It says February 6th.
February 6th. I figured, I was like, as I'm thinking, I'm like, I must have just put a 2 in front of that and then decided it was 2027 and not 2026.
Hey, maybe that'll be the date in 2026.
Maybe that'll be the date. Mark the calendars. Let's figure out. Maybe I was reading into the future on that.
Now have it on that date because you said so.
Speaking it into existence.
There you go. But yeah, we love questions. If folks have any questions, thoughts? Oops, my stuff is filling the screen with all kinds of fun things. I, got really enthusiastic comments. This is great. This is amazing. This was such good information to know. Thank you. I would say that one question, just to kind of summarize it, one question I got in Q&A was a little bit about, what is included in your umbrella of neurodivergent, right? Like who?
Yeah, that comes up all the time. I kind of tend to not be nitpicky about it. Like I am more of the lines of like I know that like what everyone practices, right, is ADHD, autism, anxiety, and some of those social anxieties, social disorders, and I think there's one other one. I just kind of tend to be like, oh, your brain works different. Okay, cool. Like, come on in. It doesn't matter to me. But that's sort of like my stance on most things. Like, I'm not big on, oh, you don't have a formal diagnosis. Oh, like, you think you belong here? Cool. Come be here.
Love that. Thank you. I think there's more coming in the Q&A. Let me take a look really quick. Okay. Oh yeah. So the last question in Q&A is the date questions. We got that taken care of. How about for our disability studies work group folks or our liaison? Do we have any questions from the room? You can also, if you're a panelist, you can unmute yourself and speak. Oh, we got Sanjeev. Yes.
I'll just share what was on my mind.
Yeah,
Thanks
please.
very much, Dr. Blagrave, for this talk. I think one of the things that I'm taking away, and I really appreciated, was how you kind of talked about how you built momentum and built connections on your campus and with the broader community. I think that the approach that you took was involved kind of building these connections, finding ways to, as you put it, kind of be very open-minded about who you could partner with, and kind of making sure that everyone felt welcome when they do come to the table, and that just kind of creates the foundation to be able to learn more together. But then also bringing in the funding and bringing in the resources. So I think that was really helpful for us to hear about that approach. My one question, I guess, would be if like what you found helpful in kind of helping to kind of like in talking with people who maybe don't think of these connections right away, or don't already see ways in which kind of working with people who are neurodiverse is going to help them kind of reach their mutual goals. Like what are some of the things you found effective at kind of reaching out?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question. And thank you for your comments on stuff too. I think that it's always best to when someone is in that space or not seeing how something can connect. I think if you can't be the person that can like explain it to them, like I hate like getting someone like that in a large space and then making them feel stupid. Like it's never gonna get anybody over on your side, right? So like, I don't know, our campus is very like culturally friendly, like have a cup of coffee, have a this. So I've done things where I've like just been like, hey, I was in this space, I was thinking about this thing. Do you have 15, 20 minutes? Can I buy you a cup of coffee and can we talk? So I'll do like a one-off that way. But also I will try to figure out if there's somebody that is on my team, for lack of a better word, and be like, oh, do you know this person? And can you backdoor this in a better way? So like, I kind of tend to be like more of the subversive channels on stuff, like, and be like, okay, like you're not here yet, but I think you can get here. And here's how I think we can get you here. So that's always like my thing on that, is trying to figure out like, what's the safest way that this person could feel that we could inform them of why they are not getting it, and then build from there.
Love that. Okay, so there's a bunch of questions came pouring in. I found the window where the questions are.
Okay.
So I'm gonna so Julia's actually on the
Oh, hey, Julia.
and yeah, so I'm gonna honor her since she was in my intro. I'm gonna honor her with her question. So she says, "Hey Josie and Jess, it's Julia. I was wondering if there's future plans at Chico State for a life skills program for more severe students like other colleges have."
Yeah, so there have been talks about that multiple times. I think for me, what keeps coming up is that campus isn't not necessarily not interested in that, but it's been done other places. And so they're more interested in trying to figure out like how we could do something different. Not to say it can't eventually happen, but funding with that is a big one. Um, my thing right now that I'm interested in just trying to start doing is we have so many student groups on our campus that also have autistic, disabled folks in these spaces. And so what I want to see is maybe if our teen programs or stuff with clinic can start funneling in, like there's a video game club that meets whenever, like with those students, I've already chatted with them a couple times. Yes, they're super down to like host a game night for our teen group. So like getting just disabled teens in general on our campus more and getting them around their peers as like a general thing is like what I think I can work with right now. And so that's my thought on that piece and like what's kind of big picture going on campus.
Love that. Yeah, and it's like one piece of the ecosystem at a time.
Yeah. I mean, I would love to just be like, this is my ecosystem and here's how it's going to be. And you're all going to do what I say. And it has not worked like that in 25 years. So
Oh, the joys of higher ed. So
yes.
I'm gonna kind of combo a couple of questions together that are about like different forms of engagement
Okay.
and wisdom, right? So for instance, we have one person asking about navigation of K-12 system as a parent advocate of an autistic kid. Okay, so I'm gonna layer a couple of things here.
Okay.
We've got one person asking about engagement as folks come to campus, not just for the student, but also with the family members of a disabled and or neurodivergent student. And the last form of engagement is, I think you have interest from a future grad student outside of Chico State.
Sweet, love it. I love that. Come on down. Let's hang out. So how to navigate the K-12 system into college and slash like how do parents fit into that, like, or how could that family system support better? So it's really interesting. We just had our we had alumni weekend this weekend, but it's also Chico preview and it's also like family weekend. And folks just tend to find me. And so I had a couple parents approach me at the pickleball tournament that I was running because that's just why not run a pickleball tournament. And as a fundraiser for the kinesiology department, just for context. And they were really upset because they were like, well, our academic advisor won't email me when my son meets with them. And I was like, oh, yeah, no, they can't email you. So that's what I think we need to understand and figure out a bridge on. And it's something we keep talking about on campus is K-12 as a parent, right? You get to know everything. You're involved with absolutely every piece of it. And then the second they become an adult, get on campus, there is zero communication that can be had with parents legally from our side unless a student calls and then is like, hey, my mom's on the phone. But then there's also stigma around that. And some faculty and staff can be total jerks around that. So we're trying to do a lot of education around that piece on both sides. But this conversation continues to come up and I am hopeful that we'll be able to find a way forward that makes sense for everybody because we don't want to just be like, oh, anybody can call anybody's parent on our campus. But then we also don't want to like say, well, we'll only call if your kid's disabled because that doesn't feel good either. So I think we're all just trying to work through it still. But I think the biggest thing as a parent getting your kid into this space is teaching them to be better self-advocates. And I think we sometimes as parents fail in that category because we're just always there doing it. And so trying to teach them as many of those skills as possible. And I keep talking to the K-12 educators about that and being like, you guys, we've got to get a skill set because we're going to keep seeing more kids in higher education spaces because the K-12 setting is getting so much better. But yeah, it's a interesting conversation to have all the time. And that's a great question.
Yeah, I love that. And I think about too, I mean, what are those transition goals to actually prepare for a world without
Yes.
IDA, right?
Mm-hmm.
That it's not your fault that as a minor child you only know one system, but
Right.
as adults in those spaces, what different other better transition goals. So this segues really well into kind of a conglomerate of higher ed questions.
Oh boy.
So
Try to not get in trouble.
no, they're not scary ones, I promise. So one is, do you have any thoughts about the forthcoming budget cuts, special education, how it might impact higher ed or any of the work that you're doing, since that's relatively recent? And then another really good question, in terms of inclusive classrooms for neurodivergent students, what are your thoughts about syllabus statements? And have you seen any that you think are particularly good, or have you seen any that you think have been particularly performative? Like people thought they were really laying down some great masterpiece, and it wasn't. And what might you be cautious of in something like that?
Okay, well, I'm going to say something that is maybe a little inflammatory. I think all syllabi are a little bit performative. Students don't read them. We hate doing them. So I think you, on our campus at least, you have to have the accessibility like statement in your syllabus. In our department, we check them. Like our department's really good with EDI work and accessibility. I think what's more important as a faculty member and as a teacher is giving really clear examples in your syllabi of like, and just saying the thing, like you might not be an ARC student, but you might also have a disability that you haven't disclosed. I'm a safe space. If you need it, like there's ways you can say things and frame things in class or those first few weeks of class that can show the students that you, oh wait, no one said this to me, like that this person cares. And then setting up your class and your assignments in a way that is accessible. So I think like more important than the syllabus and that piece and that performative aspect of all of that is actually doing and showing the students like really early on in those spaces that you do care and here's how you're setting it up. I think that is how I would answer that question.
Love that.
And funding is just I mean, we're doing everything with no funding right now on our campus. So we don't have anything. We get $1,500 from the EDI office as one of the faculty and staff groups. And that is it. And I think our student groups, however, they get funding through the clubs, but we're really on a shoestring budget and a hope and a prayer around here. So that is how everything is. I imagine, as budgets get worse, the first things always to go are disability supports, as we're clearly seeing at the federal level right now. And so I don't know how to combat that other than, contacting your people in power. But yeah, it's a concern and it's a worry. And I don't know how we're gonna ride this one out, but I think we'll figure it out.
Awesome. I have a really quick one. I think it was about the well. And just a question, can you explain who the space is for and how you explain this to people on campus? So that might be referencing like your particular time window, because we have a neurodiversity space here. It's actually
Yeah, you guys have an actual space. Okay,
Yeah.
so the well is for all, it's through Associated Students and it is for all students on our campus. So they go and get 5-star spa treatment all day, every day, whenever they want.
Love that.
It's amazing. I walked down and was like, I felt my shoulders drop and I was like, can I just come to sit in the lobby? Like, is this okay? Like, oh my gosh. For the 2 hours that the student club is there on Fridays, they have all kinds of different events that they're hosting. So there's a conference room within that space. And so they had a game a game, I call it a game night, but it was a game afternoon that they came in, all shared space and played games together. They were working with them to figure out student needs, and we're going to have different folks on campus come through, or if there is a pocket of students from a particular department, having a faculty member just come and just be a presence sometimes, just to be like, hey, do you have any like questions? Like, because you don't have to come to my office, like, let's help you figure out stuff. My favorite night that the student group does is their last meeting of the year. They do a preferred interest meeting where everybody gets 4 minutes to talk about their preferred interest for the year. And it is my favorite thing to go to. I die every single time, and I'm trying to figure out how to infuse that somehow into the symposium. I haven't quite got there yet, but I'm going to figure it out, and it is top notch, the best.
I love this
Yes.
too. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Can I come?
Yeah. Yeah, everybody can come. It's a
This
party.
sounds crazy.
Yeah.
Just to be respectful of your time, we do have some requests for your contact, if you'd be willing to drop it into chat.
Yep.
So that if folks want to follow up with you about research grad assistance or anything else, buy tickets to the Neurodiversity Symposium. That way they know how to follow up and lend their support and join your table that is open to everyone, as you say, which I really appreciate. When you said that, it gave me chills. I just feel like hearing from you is the way that I wish more of the world was. And so I really appreciate the incredible work you're doing, how long you've been at it, and the incredible ecosystem that you've built. I did not know or understand the magnitude of it until I got an inkling of it at the Neurodiversity Symposium, where every single table around the outside was like, oh yeah, we partner all together. We're all in it together. And it was like, I saw the web of interconnectivity. And then, in your talk, bring it more to light, even beyond that. Thank you for sharing such, personal experiences along the way of your journey. And just thank you for being a glimmer of hope, right? Thank you for being a breath of fresh air. I hope all of our efforts continue to have, better and bigger funding as time goes on. If you're a funder out there, fund Dr. Blagrave immediately.
Fund you guys either way, just fund somebody, keep the needle moving. Well, thank you so much for having me. It was been a pleasure to share, and thanks for indulging me on this talk.
Oh, amazing, amazing. We're your super fans down here in Southern California. We, continue to have the Disability Studies Speaker Series throughout the year. Our next one is our first Neurodiversity and Disability Studies mini symposium, modeled after the things that we've learned from Dr. Blagrave. And that is on February 9th. So go to hers first, go north and go to hers, and then make the trip down the coast and come to our second. But from the bottom of our hearts, thank you for everything. And it was just such a joy and a privilege to hear from you today. So everyone, please, in some way show appreciation to Dr. Blagrave. Thank you, thank you, thank you again.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day and take care.
Bye, guys.